Good morning, everyone. This is Kate Lambert-Lee with MWR, and welcome to the NOLS Spotlight. And we have today, I'm really excited to have her. We're having Lynn Petzold. She's senior faculty for NOLS, and NOLS is the National Outdoor Leadership School. And she has a master's in leadership and organizational development, a bachelor's of science in business administration and Spanish. Lynn has logged over 350 field weeks on backpacking and sea kayak expeditions in the last 25 years. She facilitates experiences where people connect to self, community, and wild spaces while teaching leadership, risk management, wilderness skills, and cultural environmental history. Her work has led her to wilderness areas in Alaska, Washington, California, Wyoming, Maine, New York, Pennsylvania, Patagonia, New Zealand, Norway, Croatia, Mexico, Bahamas, Canada, Thailand, and Bhutan. Lynn is a certified wellness first responder, yoga instructor, and equity-informed mediator. She lives in Seattle, Washington, where she enjoys paddling and hiking in the Pacific Northwest. And as I said, I'm really excited to have Lynn share what NOLS has to offer. Great leadership opportunities, great if you love the outdoors, and I'm going to hand it over to Lynn.
All right, thank you, Kate. And Kate, are you hearing me okay?
I am.
Okay. Anyone throughout the presentation, please feel free to add a question into the chat. And Kate, if you notice them, you're welcome to stop me so we can interact with it. Or if you want, you can save your questions till the end. But I might not notice them in the chat. So Kate, if you can ping me, do a shout out, that would be great. Okay. Well, thanks, folks, for hopefully having your lunch in hand and joining me on this presentation about NOLS, National Outdoor Leadership School. And it's a little bit of a visual journey with me giving a little more explanation about ourselves as an organization. And I've been working for NOLS for 26 years now, and I think it's a life-changing experience for staff that work for NOLS, and I think for our students as well. So NOLS started about 55, coming up on 56 years ago. And the first courses that they did, the one that first summer, was a backpacking course. And we have diversified quite a bit from backpacking since then. It was founded by a man called Paul Petzold, who was part of the 10th Mountain Division. And him and a couple other people from the 10th Mountain Division who also worked for Outward Bound, which is another wilderness leadership school. They were working in Colorado, and they came up to Wyoming to do some scouting, thinking they wanted to create some courses that they could train some of their Outward Bound staff. And they went into the Wind River mountain range in Wyoming, which is a beautiful, a little more hidden gem than some of our larger parks, such as Yellowstone and the Tetons in the western part of Wyoming. The Wind River Range is located a little more central and north, a couple hours east of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So Paul had this great idea, and it didn't take off anywhere else. So he and some others decided, we're going to start this, and ran their first course that summer with all males because that's who signed up. And Paul was an interesting vision and action person. And it's taken off that we are running in, I'll talk later about the countries and places that we operate in, but we went from one little course in Wyoming to significantly higher number of students each year, and a big variety of course offerings. But in this era, Like Paul might have been in a bar and made an agreement over a handshake, and sometimes students would sign up for a course with a promise to pay the course fee later. We've grown into a much larger organization, and we don't do handshakes in a bar with an IOU on a piece of paper. But there's a lot of opportunity for students, and so we're grateful for the vision that Paul and other people had to help get this organization started. So why go on a NOLS expedition? This is an executive course that is a 7-day backpacking course in the Wind River Range of Wyoming. And it's a course that we bring llamas on as pack animals. So it attracts a crowd that could carry a 45, 55-pound backpack, and maybe some of them not, and some of them not interested in carrying a heavier backpack. So it adds to some of the spice on these trips, as well as helping us to carry about 30 pounds in a smaller backpack. And this is a organization that was started by Rob Nielsen, All American Leadership. And he went on one of these executive courses, liked it so much, he's come back the next 5 years with his own groups in his consulting business. And on this one, we had quite a few people that were connected to military backgrounds, West Point, helicopter pilots, Navy SEALs, and I think there's some Air Force in here. But they do on these 7-day courses what some of our students will do in a semester course. So our core curriculum is similar, and we just adjust it a little bit to the particular group and age group that we're working with. So one of the reasons I think people come on a NOLS course is they want to do something different. They want to step out of their comfort zone. And when I think of adult courses, it's lifelong learners that we are working with, people that are wanting to continue to try something different and step out of areas that they have high competency in and bring some of their competence into a different environment and see how it works. And for our younger students, it's trying something new, continuing to build their skill sets, their leadership, their self-awareness as they step into other leadership roles as peers, in college, in workplaces. And so this is a little diagram that just reflects what happens to people, not just on NOLS courses, but anytime that you choose to try something different. So we all live in a comfort zone. And we all know what a panic zone can feel like, where we have left our comfort zone and it is so uncomfortable that the learning probably is not going to stick. And so where we focus to be on our NOLS courses is get people out of comfort zones and into a learning zone. And if someone is heading towards a panic zone, then we try to back it off a little bit. And students self-regulate in that as well by expressing what's working, what's challenging them. And we don't automatically shift out of an uncomfortable situation. The instructors are the safety net. They've worked with different groups, watched a variety of students. And we want our students to be uncomfortable to some extent, because that's part of the learning. If we stayed in our comfort zone, then we don't change after 7 days or 14 days, a month, 80 days. And so that green zone is where we strive to be with our students. Positive learning environment is a phrase that you will hear at the start of a NOLS course. So the first evening or the first morning, instructors and the student groups will sit down and have a conversation around what does positive learning environment look like. So this, in essence, is a charter that all parties are agreeing to as they step into wilderness places. And I think everyone's clean at this point, showered, well-fed, excited, anxious about embarking on an adventure. And whatever is agreed upon during this evening, it's one of those things that we revisit throughout the course. I like to think of norms that we all have, and then what do our norms look like when we're under stress, when we're a little hungry, tired, cold, little angry, frustrated, didn't get enough sleep last night. And so that's something that we continue to tap back into, is like, what is the agreement that we had coming into this expedition? Are there things that are working in that agreement? Do we need to readjust it? But always circling back to a positive, workable learning environment so that people are engaging in healthy community. And it has worked really well for us, I think. This reflects a little bit of the NOLS leadership model. So we'll call it NOLS 471. So 4 is the green part of the circle. And these are types of leadership roles that you will experience on a NOLS expedition, as well as probably in your workplaces. Self, we think of that one as starting, and self-leadership in our context would be somebody signing up, enrolling, getting their paperwork in on time, getting organized with the gear that they need to come on a trip, organizing their travel to arrive to a location, and then bringing all of that in, arriving on time and being ready to engage with a group that you don't know, and willing to commit to healthy norms that are going to focus on the larger group goals, and our individual goals are secondary. And then continue that throughout the trip, thinking about, how am I showing up as my best self, knowing that we all have good days, bad days. And there's a place in peer leadership then that we support each other. And also peer leadership can be moments of leadership where no one is asking us to do anything, but we see that in our tent group as we arrive to camp, that somebody needs to get the tent set up. Somebody needs to get hot water boiling and dinner cooked so that we bounce back with some calories in us. Peer leadership might be checking in with each other. How are you doing? How can I support you? Peer leadership could be doing something for somebody, and peer leadership could also be not doing something for somebody, but supporting them in learning something new and gaining confidence in that. Designated leadership is the designated leader is the person who's assigned that you are going to facilitate and execute this today. And the way that we run our courses is, the first day the NOLS instructors will hike, kayak, whatever skill set it is, from A to B, from our drop-up point to our first camp. And depending on the length of the course, they might do that for a couple days so that the students have opportunity to see a role model of what this looks like. And a 7-day course, the instructors will do it the first day, and then the students are jumping in on the second day. And for some, it may feel a little intimidating if they've never backpacked before and they're expected to lead their peers from A to B on a hiking day. And really what we focus on is everyone comes in with some leadership skills. And what you're doing are applying those leadership skills on your designated leader day. And you're facilitating the group moving from A to B. It doesn't mean you have to be the best hiker, the fastest hiker, the best map reader. But you do need to be able to talk to people and ask them how they're doing and ask for input, and then also give information back so the group knows what's the vision and what's our next step. And then active follower is something that we embrace wholeheartedly in that we ask people to ask questions, ask thoughtful questions, bring information to the leaders. A leader is doing a lot in this period of a day, moving from A to B. And so the more helpful group that they have that's willing to bring opinions, if they notice something about risk management that hasn't been shared verbally yet, they might bring that up. And there is a real talent in being an excellent active follower, having some sense of timing for when it would be appropriate and helpful to bring and mention something to a leader. Sometimes it's knowing when not to say something. Just because we would do it differently doesn't mean the style and the action with which the leader is facilitating is not going to achieve our goals. And so there's a real talent and nuance, I think, as being a really good active follower. And then we have the 7 skill sets. Expedition behavior was a term coined by Paul Petzold that's becoming a little more widespread. And he would say, in reference to expedition behavior, you might have the best mountaineers trying to summit a large peak. And if they don't have good expedition behavior, which means communicating well, listening well, supporting well, then the team may not reach the peak. And so that is a thread that we weave in through the entire course. Communication, competence, judgment and decision making. Judgment and decision making is at the heart of what we do every day. And Paul Petzold was a believer of not creating a lot of rules and having a handbook of learn these rules to work here or learn this handbook to be a student here, but really making great assessments based on previous skills and experiences. And obviously, like if you don't have a background in some of those decision makings for those particular actions that need some type of decision in it, then you might lean a little more to being conservative. But judgment and decision making is definitely at the heart of what we do. Tolerance for adversity and uncertainty. We all live that to different extents in our life, and probably there's been a whole lot of that for all of us in this past year with COVID-19. And people will step into a NOLS course feeling some of that, and they may feel some of that throughout the entire course. And what we try to do is just have a supportive group that we lift each other up when potentially we are faced with a little more adversity and uncertainty. Self-awareness is a very large part, I think, of what students walk away with from a NOLS course, is gaining a little bit more awareness of how they communicate, what's effective, what's not working, because they are stepping out of norms. And some, like an onion, some layers are being peeled back so that people get a better sense of who they are on a course. Vision and action, we all know what that is. And Paul Petzold was really great at bringing that to the forefront. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about different course types that we offer. And the youngest age group is 14 and 15, and those are called adventure courses. And some of them are co-ed, and we have some of them that are just for females. And those run, well, we have them in different places now. Typically, that was in our Idaho base. We also run them out of Wyoming, Pacific Northwest, and the Northeast, Adirondacks, New York State. Affinity courses. Like we started running affinity courses 20 years ago when we started offering women courses in Baja California, Mexico on sea kayak trips. We ran them quite successfully for a few years. And then for various reasons, they were harder to fill and we stopped offering them. And we have circled back to that about 9 years ago when we had a student take an executive course. And after that, she wanted to bring a group of women on a course. And so we brought back our women's courses. And that one course then was the trigger for offering women's courses in our catalogs as open expeditions. And they started as sea kayak courses in Mexico. We now have a sailing women's course in Mexico. We have backpacking women's courses in Alaska, in Wyoming. We've got some rock climbing courses for women, and they've been really successful. And in part, I think we can all think of who do we see as our role models. And when we see them, it's an easier foot into stepping into some of the experiences that are unknown to us. We also offer affinity courses for people of color, and that's started a few years ago. LGBQT plus, we've started offering some of them, and they have been really successful in our offerings. Here's a course in Baja, Mexico on a sea kayak course with a group of women. And I think some of the women would say, like, I'm never going on another co-ed trip again. Like, this felt really supportive in a different way. And some women will say, I'm never going on another women's course again. And some people walk away and like I'm open to doing any of them. And what I encourage women to think about is, at least at NOLS, like the support that they have found in an all women's group, we think they'll find that in a co-ed NOLS group as well. So those are a little bit about our affinity courses. We have adult courses, 23 plus, and our executive courses are 30 plus. And this is an executive course in NOLS, Alaska on a sea kayak trip. NOLS Wilderness Medicine. This was not part of our origins. And I think it was almost 20 years ago that there was an organization that was operating in Colorado, and they merged with NOLS. And so it's part of it's another pillar within our organization, Wilderness First Aid, and we offer 2-day Wilderness First Aid certifications and Wilderness First Responder courses, which are 10 days in length, and Wilderness EMT courses. And they have been incredibly successful. This year, with COVID, we had to cancel some of them at the last spring and into some of the summer. We restarted them on a little bit more limited base. We canceled some of them in the winter this year, but now we're back to really opening this up again. And organizations will send their staff here to get certified to work summer trips or summer camps. And we get people that are just interested in having a little bit more first aid knowledge if they are doing outdoor activities on their own. So 2 days would be the shortest, and those are recertified every 2 years. Wilderness Medicine and Rescue semester. Like that's a new course type for us that blends some of the outdoors and wilderness, and then a lot of our first aid curriculum as well. The classic course that NOLS started with was a month in the Wind River Range backpacking. We now offer semesters, and there's also a couple year-long courses. That doesn't mean they're on expedition for a year. It's more like a college year where they'll do a semester, have a break, and then do another semester. And what a great experience for a group, a cohort to be together and bond over that length of time. Some of the places that we operate, these are some of our international locations. So East Africa, and those mostly are backpacking courses. We offer semesters there and some standalone backpacking courses that are shorter. India, we do backpacking. And if you love big water river, we do rafting there on a couple of the rivers, and I've seen photos of them. I don't work whitewater courses, but some of my friends have worked over there and have said it's some of the biggest whitewater they have ever rode in. NOLS New Zealand. So if you want to go down under, those are backpacking, sea kayaking, and sailing expeditions. Currently not operating there during COVID. NOLS Patagonia, this is a really popular base for us of semester groups, year-long semesters, and we send quite a bit of custom courses down there. So I'm a faculty of backpacking and sea kayaking expeditions. I also work in NOLS Custom Education. And Custom Education will work with an organization to create a course that works for them in the dates that they can work, the length, the number of students. We look at different locations and skill sets, and then create a package that's workable for them. So Patagonia, NOLS Custom Ed, we send quite a few MBA courses to Patagonia for 7 to 14-day, mostly backpacking expeditions are the most popular for us there. But we also do sea kayaking courses in Patagonia. NOLS Scandinavia, that is now located in Sweden, close to the Norwegian border. So we operate in Norway and Sweden, and those are backpacking and sea kayak courses in the summer months, the Northern Hemisphere summer months. NOLS Mexico, this is in Baja California, Mexico. So the peninsula below Los Angeles and San Diego. And we offer backpacking, sea kayaking, and Drascum sailboats. And Drascum sailboats are wooden boats that about 4, maybe 5 people the most are on there to sail. And we don't sleep on them like a keelboat. They are boats that will get anchored offshore, and then the groups will sleep on the land. So we're operating the same area that we do our sea kayak courses do. If you don't like waking up early, then sailing is the course for you, because they'll wait. They'll have a leisurely wake up, do some curriculum pieces, and then wait till the wind picks up a little bit to start their days in their boats. NOLS Northeast. This is in New York State, up in the Adirondacks. So these are backpacking courses and canoe courses. And again, we have adult courses here. We have our youngest age group here. We have custom courses. We also offer something called Leave No Trace Master Educator courses. And this is one of the locations that we run them in September. It's a 5-day expedition where the focus is not on mileage and trying to backpack through a lot of terrain. The mileage is low, and we focus on the Leave No Trace principles, which I'll talk about later. And so students are teaching and getting feedback on their classes on this course. And then they get a national certification with Leave No Trace that they then take home and offer some shorter trainings. NOLS Alaska, this is one of our summer month courses. So this runs kind of mid-May through mid-August. And we run backpacking and sea kayaking courses here. We do a couple mountaineering courses, and we also have a couple courses that go on Denali. NOLS Teton Valley, this is in Idaho. And this is where a lot of our winter courses do something out of for the skiing, backcountry skiing section. And also this is another location where our youngest age group has quite a few summer courses run out of there. NOLS Three Peaks Ranch. If you like horses, this is the place to be. So this is in Wyoming. The group meets at the Three Peaks Ranch. And they'll spend a few days at the ranch learning about horses, how to saddle them, how to ride them, how to take care of them before they go out on expedition. So that is, if you love horses, those are amazing trips. NOLS Rocky Mountain, Wyoming. This is where we're headquartered. NOLS Rocky Mountain is our first location. It's also the largest location. So we run year-round out of this area for summer backpack courses, rock climbing, and then fall, winter, spring. It's connected mostly to our semester groups that are doing some winter travel and rock climbing and backpacking. We have our NOLS River base in Utah. So we run a variety of rivers. One of them is the Salmon, the Green River, the Yampa, and these are run with rafts, kayaks, and canoes. And those are mostly summer into the fall a little bit. NOLS Pacific Northwest is up in Washington State, so about an hour and a half north of Seattle. And here we run mountaineering courses, backpacking courses, sea kayaking courses. And when the Canadian border is open after COVID, we'll be returning to British Columbia, where we do some mountaineering as well as some of our sea kayaking courses. So there are 7 principles of Leave No Trace. And this is part of the curriculum that we teach on courses. And let's go through them. Plan ahead and prepare is one of them. And as you hear these, like, we think about the context of this also in our life in what we call the front country, not in the back country on a wilderness expedition. I think one of the fun pieces of this is transferring the skills that you learn at NOLS, and then how do I apply this back at home? How do I plan ahead and prepare for things that I'm doing in my life? For us, it's about planning gear and our rations and minimizing packaging that goes into the field, making sure we have the right amount of fuel, having our permits, knowing our routes. What are some of the risks associated with these areas? Am I camping in bear country? What's the terrain like? So we'll adapt a little bit in different environments. And here's an example of a stove we cook on. And I'll talk a little bit about fires in a second, but we use white gas and whisper light stoves. And we cook our meals there. And part of our rations planning is we do bulk rationing, and we work off of pounds per person per day. So there's no packaged meals that are more expensive and not as high quality of calories or flavors. So things that you would find in your cupboards at home, in your kitchen, are things that you would find in the NOLS rations. So things like pasta, rice, flour to make pizza, cinnamon rolls, breads, calzones, uh, dried beans, oatmeal, dried hash browns. So students will figure out in smaller cook groups, about 3 or 4 people, they've got all this food. They may never have known how to cook. And the instructors, this is one of the skills that we coach you in, as well as there is a little cookbook that we carry with us with recipes pertaining to the type of rations that we bring in. This group was lucky. I'm guessing this could have been an Alaska course, and they must have found some fresh blueberries. So sometimes we find some things that will supplement what we bring in. Another leave no trace principle is travel and camp on durable surfaces. So our courses, backpacking courses, we do on trail hiking and we do off trail hiking, and how we walk on these terrains varies. In this photo, you can see a trail to the right of the group. And after we get done with our photo pose here, like we'll start doing single file so that we're concentrating our impact in one hiking trail. And then if we're hiking off trail, using maps, compass to navigate to get from A to B, where there are no existing trails other than maybe some small, undefined animal trails, we'll spread out. We won't hike in one line. And that way we're dispersing where our footprints are going so that we're not creating a trail. So those are things that'll vary from different environments. Sea kayaking, we're on the water, so we're not really leaving much trace on the trail. This is Alaska. So this is behind a beach where we camp on. So we'll camp on the durable surface of the beach, which is rock and sand, instead of camping on this nice, soft, grassy, boggy area. If we camped here, when we packed up to leave, you would see where our tents were. We'd leave trails walking back and forth to different places. But we do access this area behind our beaches because majority of places that we hike, we're not carrying out our human waste, our human feces. We're leaving it in the backcountry somewhere to decay, hopefully, as rapidly as possible. And so this is an example of where we might hike back into 10 minutes away from our beach and disperse and spread out. And we'll talk about how to dig a cat hole, which is how we leave our feces in the backcountry. This is an example on the beach. We've got some grasses to the right, and we've got our tents on the gravel and more grass and forested places to the left. So that's where we're looking to have our impact, is on these durable surfaces and have less impact on those grasses or meadow areas. Here's an example in Alaska of a beach. So we land on these gravelly beaches and we're looking for safe places to get off the water. Safe places to us are indicated by if there's wind and waves, where's the smallest waves breaking on the beach? What type of terrain is on the beach? Smaller gravel and sand are some of the easier places for us to land boats. Beaches that have boulders and rocks, like those are hazards to us. And what it looks like at low tide might look very different than what it is at high tide. So in this photo, it's a low tide. And if you look up towards where the trees are and those dead trees at the top of the photo, you can see some brown lines across the gravel. And those are seaweed markers. So those are some telltale signs that we look for of like, where was the last high tide here? So I can anticipate how high I need to put my kayaks. And is there a place that I can put my tents and be safe if the high tide arrives in the middle of the night? So in Alaska, the tides range from like -1 or 2 below the average 0 mark, all the way up to 15-foot tides. So that's a significant difference from a low tide to high tide. All right, that photo looks kind of funny. It's sideways, but here's an example of turn your head sideways, dispose of waste properly. So feces is one thing in many of our areas we leave behind, but we do it in a way that the soil is going to decompose it rather rapidly. I don't know if any of you have ever been out hiking or somewhere and you've seen human feces or even dog feces somewhere, or you step in it, or there's toilet paper. Like, it's not really fun aesthetically, and it's certainly not fun to step in it. So human waste has some, like, it's just as far as for sanitation, we know we want to not leave it out in the open. So this is an example of someone digging a hole in the ground. We call them cat holes. And in a rich soil ecosystem, we'll dig down 6 to 8 inches. And for some people, this is kind of intimidating, thinking about not having a toilet to go to when they need to. But it will be one of the most beautiful bathrooms you'll ever have. So that's one way that we dispose of human waste. Anything else, we pack out. So any of our leftover plastic bags that had our food in them, any food particles that we don't finish eating, those are the things that we'll pack out with us, so that if somebody else were to go into our site where we camped, they may never have known that there was a group there. Leave what you find. So there's a lot of cool things out in the wilderness, and part of Leave No Trace is leaving what you find. So in general, like, where students aren't going home with a huge bag of rocks or shells from a beachy area. If we're ever in a national park, like, we need to respect what the local rules are and regulations. So a national park, part of Leave No Trace, leave what you find would be that no tolerance for removing anything out of a national park. And in part, that's due to the number of people that will go through an area where we as humans have a much larger impact. Minimize campfire impacts. One way that we do that is that we do the majority of our cooking over stoves, white gas stoves. And we will have fires at various times on NOLS courses. 1, to cook; 2, for ambiance; 3, maybe we need to dry out some gear. But we're not doing that on a nightly basis, in part because there isn't always a lot of fuel as a resource. And if we use a lot of it as a group going through, then there's nothing left behind to decay and become part of soil, or for another group to come through and have a fire. So we do have them, but we also think about ways that we can minimize them. And one part of that is not having huge bonfires. We have, there's a Leave No Trace campfire skill, and it's usually based on having a smaller fire than we might be used to back home. And there's an example of what one of our Leave No Trace fires might be, about that size. And this is in Alaska, and we were going on the northern route of this area where it's more glaciated, where there's less wood. And so on this trip, we decided to bring a stack of wood in so that we could have a fire one night on that trip. And that was part of planning ahead and preparing, knowing the area and the resources that were available. Respect wildlife. So this is a grizzly up in Alaska, and we will teach students and expect them to be very proficient at camping in bear country so that we don't have an incident. And part of respecting wildlife would be that we're in their home, their terrain. We're just guests coming through for our journey and adventure. If we were to have a negative impact on something like a bear, where we had contact, it got into the human food, we report that back to the agency, the land agency where we're operating. And if there's enough of an interaction with something like a bear with humans, then the impact on that bear is that they'll go in and move it to a different location, or sometimes they'll go in after a lot of human contact with a wild animal, and they'll kill it. So part of respecting wildlife for us is giving distance, keeping our space from them, and having really healthy food practices where we are distant from our food. This is an example in NOLS, Alaska, that we were doing a little practice. So as NOLS does not carry firearms, we're not permitted to carry firearms. And all research has shown that the safest protection that you can have in grizzly bear or black bear country is to carry a bear spray and know how to use it. So here we are before we're going into the field. That one guy's pulling wooden bear on that string, and the group has been trained how to react to that. And really what we should be doing in here is people should have their arms up, and we got together, so we made ourselves larger, but we should have our arms up, and hopefully people are making a bit of noise. And that's what we do in bear country. These on a sea kayak course, like we run into marine life, and seals will haul out on ice. So we try not to get so close that we are scaring them off into the water, because they're out gaining some warmth from the sun versus having to work harder to maintain their body temperature in the cold water. Alaska, we see quite a bit of eagles. They've made quite a bit of comeback since, I don't know if any of you know of the DDT chemical that was a spray, pesticide sprays in the 60s that was banned in the United States. But eagles are one that have made quite a bit of comeback, and eagles have made quite a bit of comeback also in Prince William Sound from the Exxon Valdez oil spill that happened in this pristine area. So after a while, you'll say there's an eagle, and students don't even look up. We see so many of them. Quite a bit of bird life on our coastal sections. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this, but it's a American black oyster catcher, and they're a bird that nests on the ground, and they have a funny habit of when we come by as kayakers, they will make quite a bit of noise. They will walk away from their nest area, and they'll act like they're injured a little bit. And what they're trying to do is distract predators away from their nest to protect the newborns. And both, an interesting one of them is both male and females will tend to the nest. Be considerate of others is our final leave no trace principle. And this is as Americans, like often we go into wild places for quiet and solitude. And so we want to be considerate of other visitors in how we act, the noise level that we make. And then if we were camping in Patagonia, boy, like if we ever ran into locals there, they'd be over the top excited to have our company. And then in Wyoming and some of other places, like we do run into pack animals. So we use them on a couple courses, but horse packing is quite big in Wyoming. So, we train students on what do we do when we encounter a group that has pack animals such as horses, so that they are safe with their animals as we are interacting and passing each other on trails. What will I learn on a NOLS expedition? So we are a school, and we've already covered just in some of these things, like things that we'll be learning. But skill sets, like whatever skill that you're learning, backpacking, sea kayaking, sailing, whitewater, mountaineering, climbing, like from the start, before we even go into the field, people have a list of things that they need to bring. And then the instructors will sit down with the student group and go over those lists again, and then share information about, in this example, like how to pack your backpack so that it's nicely balanced and it's comfortable on you and not causing you pain, making it more easy. Sea kayaking, the first thing that we often do on these courses is do something called a wet exit. So we're having these students flip their boat over and get out of the kayak. And what these skill sets, before like we even really get going into the expedition, what we're doing is building skill sets by increments. So it's not necessarily a deep dive from day one, but instructors will work on a progression of skills as students build their comforts, as they build their skills. Then we continue to do more, longer days, harder hiking, more challenges. This is one of the skill sets this student has. This is like a topo map of the area of Prince William Sound, Alaska. And so what he's doing is briefing us on where we're going the next day in our travel. So map reading skills is part of it. Communication, group decision-making. So this is one model that we teach on a lot of our courses, that there's not one style of how to make a decision in a group as a leader. There are situations that will help you decide, guide you towards like what might be the most effective. In this case, the leader directive style. Like a lot of us will know that someone tells us what to do and we just do it. And it's appropriate, and for us at NOLS, when there's a safety concern or when people don't have a lot of information and you're teaching them basic skills to build on. And on a NOLS course, we'll do a lot of directive at the start, but by the end of a trip, as students gain more skill sets, like they're doing a lot more perhaps consensus amongst each other. As a leader, you might ask the group, not really knowing what you want to do, but gathering information from them and then using information that you have from your group to decide what's going to work best for this scenario. And then delegating, like just handing over the reins to another group to do and standing back and watching mistakes made, things go well. And really, we do allow quite a bit of room for students to try things and sometimes make mistakes on them. And through our mistakes and our things that we're executing well, we debrief at the end of the day and just what's our learning takeaways? What can we apply tomorrow to keep building upon these skill sets? Oh, this is just, I think of community, like the groups really hopefully are quite supportive of each other. And for a lot of people, there's a network that you find on a NOLS course that goes beyond your NOLS course. Self-reflection, self-awareness is a piece I think that people will walk away with on a NOLS expedition. Being in places of extreme beauty on this planet. Like, we have an amazing planet, and these wilderness places that we can access without motor vehicles really allows us to see some areas that are a little less touched by our human impact. We'll experience all kinds of weather. So this is a great one for tolerance, for adversity, and uncertainty. We get some courses throughout that you have some really nice weather. Some courses have really challenging weather. Either way, like there's great learning and takeaways and just watching right in the nature versus from our warm, controlled rooms and windows looking out at it. Like we're in it. And so it's quite an experience to feel it and be present with it. These are up in the northern part of Prince William Sound, Alaska, where we are nestled right against so many tidewater glaciers and mountain glaciers, which are changing. And the sunsets, like it's offers so much beauty on these trips. This is down in the Bahamas where we run an alumni trip. Up in Wyoming, up on top of pass after a long hike day. This is one of our alumni trips out in, where is this? Iceland. So one of the nice things of taking a NOLS course is once you take one, you then are alumni and you have access to different things. But one of the ones that I really appreciate are alumni trips.
Lynn, we have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Is there a certain ability or fitness level needed to participate in these programs? And is there an age limit?
Yeah, Cynthia, great question. There is a NOLS health form, which when we're not in COVID times, if it's longer than a week course, people need a physician's signature. And it's just like a regular health form that you might see at a yearly checkup. So that'll go through a health review through NOLS, through our wilderness protocols. So once in a while, there's a very small percentage of people that based on recent injury or surgery or medications that they just started for physical or mental health. And we just have some protocols of, I think it's like 6 months on that dose so that you know what your body, how it reacts to that. So we'll go through and screen people in that sense. There's a basic fitness level that someone would want to have. And the courses offer different things. A mountaineering course is going to be more rigorous with a heavy pack. A backpacking course is going to have some challenges, but a lighter pack than mountaineering. Sea kayaking, canoeing, the the craft. The boat is carrying the weight and you are pushing it or riding currents with it. So sailing, like there's a different level on each of those courses that would require more physical fitness or less physical fitness. And some of it is just doing a little training before you come into a course. And again, you don't have to be a triathlete. You don't have to be the best. And some people will have never backpacked, kayaked, camped before well, actually, a lot of people may have never done those things as they come on our courses. But you'll learn the skill sets and the group will work. Like we're not hiking at our fastest person's pace. We all leave A and we all arrive to B. And is there an age limit? There's no specific age limit. I know these executive courses that I've been working, we've had people in their 60s, even in their 70s. And I will say sometimes a 60, 70-year-old, depending on who they are, can be more fit than our 20-year-olds. So really what it takes is somebody who I think is adventurous, wants to learn something new, is ready to try something, knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable at times. You're going to be challenged and pushed at times. And the reward is amazing at the end of even a 7-day course. It's life-changing for students, and I include adults in that. I think we expect our 18-year-olds to try new things and have it be life-changing and impactful. And it's one of the reasons I like our adult courses, because you can teach old dogs new tricks. And people can really have some personal shifts from having the experience of being on a NOLS expedition. Like all these courses, there's a range of length, there's a range of cost. I think if you're like me, when I first saw NOLS catalog, I'm like, oh, this is something I would love to do, but I can't afford it. And I remember talking to people taking NOLS courses, we're NOLS instructors, and looking at a catalog for 4 years, somebody finally said, like, there's scholarships available at NOLS. Just apply for one and then apply for the scholarship. And I did that on 2 courses. And it made such a difference for me on something that was out of reach financially, but with scholarship funds, like I was able to do some hard work leading into it, and I was able to pay for my NOLS course. If you've ever done AmeriCorps, people use their AmeriCorps funds applied to NOLS courses and wilderness medicine courses. I know that there is some military funds that people have for educational pieces that people apply it to this. So where there's a will, there's a way. And I think asking questions and seeing what's available is a really great example. How about fees? Does the VA help cover any courses? There is some, yes, government veterans programs that do I'm interested in learning more about that. Like Kate, you could funnel your question to Kate and she could get it to me, or she connect you directly to me, and I'd be happy to help sleuth a little bit more on that for somebody. Hey, in this last photo, if you look at it, the second to the left there, that's our hiking expedition. And that's me to the left of her. Yeah, so if you are interested for yourself, if you have kids that you think might be interested, don't let the cost, the tuition determine to get assistance.
Lynn, have you ever lost a llama on the trips?
Oh, we certainly have, Kate. And it was your course. I think it was your course, wasn't it?
It
Was. We
was.
lost Summit. Okay, so we're in black bear country in the southern winds here, and we had been camped. Or no, we were coming into camp. We were hiking in 3 groups. My group got into camp and we picketed our llamas. So picket is to take the line, a long leash that has a swirly corkscrew, like a wine cork opener. And that's the picket. And you twist it into solid ground. And we do it in a meadow, places where they can feed at night and rest for the next day. And we were back up in camp across the trail and heard llamas doing a distress call. And so we all ran down to where the llamas were. And there were 5 of us. And all the llamas were facing towards the forest and continuing to call. And so we went to the forest line and we're looking in there. And then we see a bear just ambling up over this little tiny knoll in the forest. Meanwhile, the second hiking group comes in with their llamas. And we're talking, sharing information. And we start to see the bear has now come out of the forest, is crossing the trail and going up the hill to where our camp is. And so we all move as a large group of 10 people and 3 llamas. And we watch this bear paralleling it. And bears are fast movers, faster than humans. And we watched it run into where we were setting up our kitchen and grab one of our rations food bags and run off with it. And some of us ran after it, but it moved so fast and down the next hill, it was out of sight. So this is unfortunate, right? Like we just let a bear get human food. So now that bear, if it gets into that food, starts to become accustomed. And so the next time it smells human food in that area, like it'll go into their camps. So eventually we're all in camp and we set up a bear fence. So what we do on these courses that have black bear, grizzly bear, most of them now, we carry something called an electric bear fence. So it unrolls, we set it up in a circle, we connect it, we attach it to the battery system, we put all our food in the center of it. And so anything or anyone that touches the wires, once it's connected, it's an electric shock, just like on a farm that has electric fences. And that's where we store our food when we're away from our food or when we are like in our tents at night. The bear came back into our camp. We chased it away again, followed it. We found the food bag that was ripped open. And so that's our bear story. But the next morning, we went down. We saw the bear down on the trail again. And we went to our llamas and realized that there was one missing. And the picket was still in the ground. It had pulled so hard, it broke the metal rings and had escaped. And we looked that morning. We sent back to headquarters. After the course, we put up lost and found signs at the trailheads. And about 2 weeks later, there was a teenage girls hiking group coming out, and the llama still had its line around its neck. And fortunately, that line got wrapped around a bush, and that's where the llama was sitting. And the girls brought it down the trail and found out there was a lost llama, and we recovered the lost llama. So that is our one llama escape story.
Thanks, Lynn. That was, yes, it definitely was an adventure. And I think, that shows how we learn how to adapt. We lost a llama. We had multiple bear encounters. The bear took part of the food, so people had to redistribute everything. And, it just was a great learning experience and in the most beautiful area you could ever wish for. Um, but if anybody has any questions, like Lynn said, you can email me, MWR at Battle Creek, or MWR Battle Creek at DLA.mil. We get those answers for you. And if anybody has any questions as we're wrapping up, just let us know. But thank you so much, Lynn.
You are welcome. It's great
Just
to
a little
connect.
bit about. Yep, it looks like we have a couple questions. Oh, yes, again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone stay healthy, and I hope that you can find some wild space wherever you are. And if like the NOLS is interesting, happy to have conversations. And there's also other organizations out there. So find some way to get into wild space where we can disconnect from our normal day-to-day electronics, all the things that we are responsible for that divides our attention, and come into the backcountry where you can truly just be present where you are in the moment in really beautiful places. Yep, we've had whale encounters. I've had an orca whale swim right under my kayak once up in Alaska. We had a double kayak in Alaska, maybe what was it, a gray whale or fin whale that started coming out of the water, just lifting itself up. And I think it must have just that there was something different, and it immediately went back under the water. But there was an instructor who had a disposable camera in his pocket. He wasn't even looking in that direction, but he knew he could. Everybody was talking about it. He like quickly grabbed his camera and shot a photo. And he actually has a picture of the kayak on top of a whaleback. But it was all very gentle, and the students never flipped their boat. But that is very unusual. Like, I have been paddling for 30 years and never heard of that happening. So yeah, we see whales, but rarely do we actually connect with them in a physical sense.
Well, thank you again. Really appreciate you sharing, and everybody else, thanks for joining us. And if you'd like a copy of the presentation or have questions, like I mentioned, email us and we will get you there. Also join us Friday for Purposeful Parenting Lunch and Learn, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Be safe.